I never thought that dinner would turn into a negotiation. Everything started off so normal. Soft candlelight, her favorite pasta, the red wine I had picked carefully. I even joked that if we kept having dinners like this, we'd never need to go out again. She smiled, but it was brief, almost distracted, like her mind was somewhere else. Then she set her wineglass down, looked straight at me, steady, direct, not avoiding a thing. "I'm serious," she began, her voice calm and even. "When we get married, I'm not doing housework anymore. If you want it done, you can hire someone." The words landed softly, but sharp, like a blade sliding across the table. It wasn't what she said that struck me, but how she said it. No emotion, no hesitation, no testing the waters, just a statement. I went quiet for a few seconds. The only sound was the ticking clock and the faint clinking of silverware. I looked at her, trying to read her expression, wondering if this was some kind of joke, a social experiment, or something else entirely. But her face gave away nothing. "You mean, you won't do any housework at all?" I asked, my voice calm, calmer than I felt. "Not cooking, not laundry, not cleaning?" She nodded. "Yeah, I don't see the point. I've done enough of that living with my parents. Now I want to focus on my career and myself. You can handle it, right? That last part, you can handle it, right?" Sounded like reassurance, but there wasn't an ounce of softness in it. It carried logic, calculation. I let out a short laugh, not the amused kind, the kind that escapes when you realize something just shifted, quietly but permanently. "I can handle it," I said. "I'm just not sure I want to do it alone." She shrugged, casual, detached. "Then hire someone. You have the money." The words passed lightly, but inside me they hit like an echo that wouldn't fade. I looked at her, searching for a flicker of guilt, hesitation, or second thought. But she looked relieved, even content, as if she'd just put down a burden she'd been carrying too long. I used to love that confidence. It was what drew me to her in the first place, a woman who knew what she wanted and wasn't afraid to say it. But that night, her confidence didn't feel admirable. It felt like a wall. Dinner ended in silence. Neither of us said another word. She ate slowly, occasionally smiling at something on her phone, then excused herself to wash her hands, calm, graceful, like nothing had happened. I stayed there, my hand resting under my chin, staring at my glass of wine. The amber light hit the table, splitting into two reflections, two separate worlds that no longer met. I thought about the picture we took last summer, her sitting on the grass, wind in her hair, smiling like she believed in forever. Back then, I thought marriage was just a natural continuation of love, that when two people cared deeply enough, sharing life would come naturally. Now, I wasn't so sure. I wasn't angry, not even hurt. If anything, I understood her, at least partly. She lived in a world that taught women to be independent, assertive, to prioritize themselves. She wasn't wrong for wanting that. But what unsettled me was how she said it, with zero consideration for the person sitting across from her. She didn't see marriage the way I did. To me, it was partnership. To her, it was an arrangement, a structured deal where each person played a role, as long as they got what they wanted. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay there staring at the ceiling, the hum of the air conditioner steady in the dark. My mind replayed every small detail, the way she set her glass down, the way she said "you have money," the way she didn't look at me afterward, Those little things, they were the truth. She didn't argue. She didn't justify herself, because, in her mind, everything was already decided. I thought back to all those late-night talks about the future, the house, the kids, her plans to start her own company. I used to think she was just dreaming big. I didn't realize that, in every one of those dreams, she was the center, and I was just a background character. Around 3 a.m., I got out of bed and went downstairs. The house was so quiet, I could hear the clock ticking. I sat by the window, looking out at the streetlights reflecting off the fog. I tried to imagine what being her husband would really mean, constantly managing my tone, letting her win, carrying the pieces she refused to touch. I asked myself if I could live like that forever. The answer came quick. I couldn't, but I didn't say that out loud. Not yet. Not because I was afraid, but because I needed to see more. I needed to be sure this wasn't just a fleeting feeling when I came back upstairs. She was asleep, her face peaceful, untouched by the conversation that had just redrawn the map of our relationship. And in that quiet moment, it became painfully clear. We were in love with two different versions of marriage. One of us believed love was enough to sustain it. The other believed love was just a piece of the equation. I didn't know which one of us was right, but I knew, deep down, we were walking in opposite directions, and that was the beginning of a distance neither of us would admit. At least, not yet. The next morning, everything looked the same. Sunlight through the blinds, the smell of coffee, her humming softly as she got ready for work. It was almost unsettling how ordinary it felt, given what had been said the night before. She acted like the conversation never happened. No awkward glances, no tension, just routine. Maybe that was her way of dealing with things, moving forward, pretending the emotional debris didn't exist. I watched her pour coffee into her travel mug. She always added 2 sugars and a splash of oat milk. It was such a small, human detail, something I used to find endearing, but now every gesture felt loaded, like it was part of a performance I hadn't realized I was watching. Before she left, she kissed my cheek. "Don't forget to call the florist about the wedding," she said, grabbing her keys. "They close early today." I nodded, forcing a smile. "Yeah, I'll handle it." She smiled back, polite, perfect, and walked out the door. The second it clicked shut, the silence felt heavier than before. That day, I didn't go to work. I took the day off, told my team I wasn't feeling well. The truth was, I just needed space to think, to see what this relationship really was when the noise stopped. I looked around our apartment. It was spotless because I had cleaned it the day before. She used to help. Not always, but enough to make it feel like we were doing it together. Somewhere along the line, that changed, and I didn't even notice. I opened my phone and scrolled through our old messages, the early ones. They were full of warmth, teasing, and plans. She used to ask about my day, send pictures of her lunch, write little things like Monsieur Fay. But the more recent ones, they were logistics, appointments, venues, guest lists. Love had quietly turned into management. That afternoon, she texted me, "Can you grab the dry cleaning? They close at 6. No please, no thank you. Just another task on my list." And for the first time, I didn't reply. I didn't pick it up either. That was my first test. When she came home around 7, she noticed immediately. The dry cleaning ticket was still on the counter. She frowned, holding it up. "You forgot this." I didn't look up from my laptop. Did I? Her tone tightened. Yeah, you said you'd handle it. I didn't say that. I corrected, calm but firm. You told me to. For a moment, she blinked, as if recalibrating. Then, with a breath, she said, Okay, I didn't ask, but I thought you would. I nodded, still typing. I thought about it too. Then I realized I had other things to do. She stared at me for a few seconds, studying my face like she was trying to figure out what game I was playing. But I wasn't playing. I was observing, measuring. Her voice softened, but her eyes didn't. You're mad about last night, aren't you? I closed the laptop. I'm not mad. I'm just processing. She crossed her arms. Processing what? That conversation. The one where you told me you wouldn't do any housework after we get married. She exhaled through her nose, almost annoyed. You're still stuck on that. I was just being honest. You should appreciate that. I do, I said slowly. But honesty doesn't erase selfishness. Her jaw tightened. Wow, okay. So now I'm selfish for wanting to build a life where I don't waste my time cleaning toilets. No, I said. You're selfish for assuming I will. Silence. That was the first time I saw her crack. Not outwardly, but in her eyes. There was a flicker of something, maybe guilt, maybe calculation. Then, like always, she buried it under that calm, composed exterior. She sat down across from me. Look, she began, tone controlled, I just want us to have a good life. You work a lot. I work a lot. If we can afford help, why not use it? Why are you making this a moral issue? Because it's not about the house, I said. It's about effort. About what partnership means to you. She shook her head, leaning back in her chair. You're overthinking it. Maybe I was. Or maybe she wasn't thinking enough. She stood up, brushing imaginary lint off her skirt. I don't have time for this right now. I'm exhausted. And just like that, she walked away. Conversation over. Problem dismissed. But for me, it wasn't over. Not even close. That night, I cooked dinner alone. Something simple, pasta and garlic bread. When she came down later, she didn't say anything about it. She just grabbed a plate, ate quietly, then disappeared upstairs again. No thank you. No conversation. Just two people existing in the same space, playing their roles. I lay awake that night again, staring at the ceiling, thinking about how love dies. Not with shouting or betrayal, but with indifference, with the slow erosion of us. She once told me she didn't like drama, that she preferred peace, control, predictability, and I believed her. But I was starting to realize that peace, for her, meant silence, and control meant winning. So I decided I'd keep testing, not out of spite, but clarity. I needed to know if she cared about me, or about what I provided, and deep down, I already knew what the answer would be. I decided to try something new, silence. No arguments. No guilt trips. No emotional wars. Just silence. I stopped doing the unspoken things. No more making breakfast. No more cleaning the dishes after dinner. No more washing both our clothes. I did my part, and only my part. The first day, she didn't notice. The second day, she frowned when she saw the dishes piling up, but said nothing. By the third day, she stood in the kitchen, arms crossed, staring at the sink full of plates. You're not cleaning this. I looked up from my laptop. I didn't use those. she scoffed. So we're keeping score now. It's not that, I said calmly. I'm just doing what's mine. Like you said, she went quiet for a few seconds, then turned away. No argument, no explanation. But in that pause, I saw it a crack. 3 days later, she hired a cleaning lady. Middle-aged, kind, quiet. Did her job well. My fiancé left the invoice on the counter, said only one thing. We'll split it, okay? I nodded. No protest. No sarcasm. Let her think she won. Because I wanted to see, once she got what she wanted, would she still care about us? Nights became routine. Sometimes I cooked, sometimes I didn't. Sometimes she ate, sometimes she didn't. We stopped sinking. We just coexisted, to people sharing a space, not a life. One evening, she walked into my office, looked around, and said, "You've changed." I didn't even look up. "Or maybe you just noticed," she sighed. "Are you trying to make me feel guilty?" I turned to her, voice steady. "No, I'm just living the way you said you wanted." Her eyes flickered, then hardened. "If that makes you happy, fine." She walked away. And in that moment, I realized I wasn't talking to the same woman I once proposed to. She used to be warm, thoughtful. Now she was all precision, measured, strategic, emotionally efficient. Feelings, to her, were like numbers in a spreadsheet. Balanced, controlled, never messy. That night, her mother called. "Everything okay between you two?" She asked gently. I forced a smile she couldn't see. "Yeah, we're fine." Her voice softened. "You know, she's always been like that. Strong, sometimes too strong. She means well, she just doesn't know how to soften." I didn't answer. That line echoed in my head long after we hung up. Doesn't know how to soften. And maybe that's the problem, when you live too long in cold logic. Warmth starts to feel like weakness. I sat on the couch that night, staring at her office door, half open, light spilling through the crack. I wondered if I walked in right now, hugged her, told her I still loved her. Would anything change? Probably not. Because love, when tested too long without compassion, turns into something else, a quiet battle to prove who's right. She came out an hour later, stood by the stairs. "You're not going to bed?" "Not tired. I'm leaving for a business trip tomorrow. 3 days. You'll be okay?" "Yeah, go ahead." She nodded, walked upstairs. Her footsteps faded, one by one, and I sat there, watching her disappear into the dark hallway, realizing something simple. This might not be the end, but it sure as hell isn't a beginning anymore. When Emily's words hit me, I felt something in me quietly snap, not in anger, but in understanding. For the first time, I truly saw the version of her that had always been there, but that I had ignored. The woman sitting across from me wasn't the same person I fell in love with 2 years ago. Or maybe she was, and I just refused to see the truth. That night, I didn't yell. I didn't argue. I just watched her talk, watched how she smiled as if this was all some kind of negotiation she could win. She spoke about roles and expectations like she was reading off a contract, not talking to her future husband. She said, "You make more money, so you should handle the chores or hire someone. That's fair, right?" Her voice was calm, logical even, the kind of calm that makes you question your own sanity. I nodded slowly, trying to hold myself together. "Fair," I repeated, though the word felt foreign in my mouth. Fair would mean partnership. Fair would mean respect. What she was describing was convenience, her convenience. After dinner, I stayed up late, sitting in the dark living room. The quiet hum of the refrigerator was the only sound in the apartment. I thought about everything, the nights I cooked for her, the weekends I spent cleaning while she rested, the countless small sacrifices that never even registered in her world. And then it hit me, she didn't want a partner. She wanted an audience. Someone to applaud her independence while quietly carrying the weight she refused to acknowledge. The next morning, I made her coffee, like always. She kissed my cheek and said, "You're such a good man." For a second, I wanted to believe her. But the words felt empty now, rehearsed, mechanical. That was the moment I decided something had to change. That morning, sunlight streamed through the kitchen window, painting everything in gold. But inside me, there was nothing but cold silence. I didn't say a word about what I'd been thinking all night. I just watched Emily move around the house, like a stranger studying his own life from the outside. She sat at the table, hair tied back neatly, doing her makeup while scrolling through her phone. It was an ordinary sight, but today every detail seemed sharper. The way she glanced at the clock, the faint irritation when she noticed I hadn't made her coffee yet. "I thought you were up early," she said casually, her tone light but edged. "I went to bed late," I replied, keeping my voice even. She didn't answer, just shrugged. Then, as if remembering something, she smiled and said, "Oh, by the way, there's a dinner party at my parents' this weekend. Don't plan anything else. And bring that nice bottle of wine from last time, Dad really liked it." She said it so naturally, as if everything had already been decided. Standing there, I realized I wasn't her partner anymore. I was a convenient piece in her carefully arranged life, useful, replaceable. All day, I couldn't focus on work. Her words kept echoing in my head, not because I was angry, but because I was disappointed. I used to believe love meant sharing, building together. But to her, together only existed when it was convenient. That evening, when I got home, Emily was on the couch, watching TV, scrolling through her phone, completely at ease. I sat beside her, eyes on the screen, and finally asked, "Do you ever think that marriage isn't just about you anymore? That sometimes I'll be tired, and I'll need you to stand beside me, not as someone giving orders, but as someone with me?" She didn't look up. She just smiled slightly and said, "You're overthinking it. Everything's fine. You're good at what you do. You'll handle it." That one line, so light, so effortless, cut deep. Not because it was cruel, but because it was empty. That night, I lay beside her, listening to her steady breathing, and realized the truth. I was lying next to someone who didn't really see me anymore. I woke up in the middle of the night, not from a nightmare, but from something worse, emptiness. Emily was still asleep beside me, her breathing soft and steady, her face calm as if there had never been any tension between us. But inside me, something was quietly collapsing, piece by piece. I walked to the kitchen, opened the fridge, and poured a glass of water. The faint click of the light switch echoed louder than it should have. In that silence, I finally saw it clearly. This house wasn't ours anymore. It was just a place where two people existed next to each other, not together. The next morning, I left for work earlier than usual. Fatigue clung to me like static. During a meeting, a coworker asked if I was okay. I smiled and said, "Just didn't sleep much." But the truth was, I wasn't sleep deprived. I was belonging deprived. That afternoon, Emily texted me, Don't forget to buy tulips for my mum. She loves them. No greeting. No, how's your day? Just an instruction, wrapped in politeness. That night, we went to her parents' house for dinner. The table glowed under warm lights, laughter filled the air, and the wine flowed easily, but inside me there was nothing. I played my part perfectly, smiled at the right moments, complimented the food, made polite conversation, and she shone, confident, poised, talking about her career plans and her latest project. Everyone adored her, her intelligence, her independence, her drive. I looked at her, and for the first time, I didn't see the woman I loved. I saw someone performing, and I was just another prop in her carefully arranged scene. After dinner, when everyone went to their rooms, I stepped outside. The night air was cool, scented with jasmine. From the open window, I could hear Emily talking to her mother, her voice steady, controlled, emotionless. "He's fine, Mum. I know he won't leave. He's too good of a man to walk away." The words floated out softly, but to me, they hit like a hammer. I stood there in the dark, hearing every word. And in that moment, everything became painfully clear. She didn't love me because she couldn't. She kept me because she knew I wouldn't leave. Because kindness, in her eyes, wasn't strength. It was a leash. I wasn't angry. I just felt something snap. A tiny, invisible crack, like the sound a rope makes right before it breaks. I went back inside, grabbed my jacket, picked up my car keys. Emily turned, puzzled. "Where are you going?" "You didn't say goodbye to my parents." I smiled, calmly, too calmly. "I'm going to get more wine," I said, "but I might not come back." She laughed, thinking I was joking. But for once, I wasn't. I walked out the door, down the quiet street, and for the first time in months, maybe years, I took a deep breath that actually felt real. The cold air burned my lungs, sharp and pure, and right then, I realized something simple but life-changing. I wasn't leaving her. I was finally coming back to myself. I didn't have a plan when I walked out that night. I just drove aimlessly, letting the cool air slap against my face, the hum of the engine drowning out everything in my head. The streets blurred past like flickers of memory. The cafe where Emily and I used to laugh, the park bench where we argued, the corners where we once believed things would always be okay. I stopped at a gas station, bought a can of cold coffee, and sat in the car watching the neon light reflect off the windshield. The feeling wasn't pain, not exactly. It was more like taking off a shoe that had been too tight for too long. At first, there's emptiness. Then comes relief. I checked into a small hotel for a few days and turned off my phone. No calls, no texts. I didn't expect any. Emily wasn't the kind of person who panicked when someone left. She probably believed I'd come back, because that's what I always did. But not this time. Slowly. I started rebuilding the quiet parts of myself. I made coffee in the mornings, took walks in the park, played old music, the kind she used to call too sad. I reconnected with my mum, with friends I hadn't seen in years because Emily thought they were a waste of time, and piece by piece, I realized something painful but true. She didn't erase me. I let her. 3 weeks later, she finally texted, "Are you planning to hide forever?" Just one message. Cold, short, perfectly her. I read it over and over, then replied, "No. I just don't want to live in a marriage where one person always has to lose." She didn't respond. I didn't expect her to. Eventually, I packed my things and moved back into my old apartment, the one I'd lived in before I met her. The walls were scuffed, the light a little too yellow, but when I sat down on the couch with a cup of coffee, I felt something I hadn't felt in years: peace. Sometimes I still think about her, not with anger, but with a strange mix of regret and gratitude. Because if that night hadn't happened, I might never have seen the truth. Love isn't about who's right or wrong. It's about whether you're still walking the same path. A year later, I heard she got engaged to a young entrepreneur, wealthy, ambitious, confident, just like her. I smiled when I heard it. Maybe they'll understand each other better than we ever could. As for me, I didn't rush into anything new. I learned how to love myself again, something I hadn't done in a very long time. Every morning, I open the window, let the wind in, watch the sunlight spill across the floor, and realize something simple but powerful. Peace doesn't come from not being alone. It comes from being alone and still feeling whole. My story doesn't end with heartbreak. It ends with truth. Sometimes leaving isn't losing. It's the only way to come home to yourself.